We'll be looking at how the Crux Legion rose to power. We start off in the colonial era, which is not the best era to live in Australia, obviously. You got taxed as hell. The only native nation that was on this island was Sulawesi, but I mean, they don't count. They're Indonesian, not Australian. Anyway, we got China, Andalusia, and the Dutch Empire on there. No, pretty sucky. Until World War II starts. That's when shit hits the fan. For the colonists, of course. And China starts invading. Shit goes good for China because, well, the locals support them and welcome them with open arms. Why wouldn't you welcome your liberator with open arms? That'd be rude. Okay, little mistake here. Backtrack. Yeah, anyway. They keep on, taking land and seizing land and killing the colonists and finding governors and killing them. You know, normal stuff that you'd expect in World War II, at least. Anyhow, China finishes off the Tasman colony, takes all that over, crosses to Tasmania, and into New Zealand. Andalusia is out, and then also the Dutch are out of Western Australia. And on January 13th, 1997, the Union of Tasman officially declares independence, a day after the Conference of Babylon ended. And then on January 30th, Western Australia declares independence. And China takes some time to leave and set up a proper government for it to not be unstable as hell. So in 1930, they officially leave Queensland, and the Republic of Queensland is declared. Yeah, anyway, the only foreign nation on here is just Sulawesi, alright? But that'll be out pretty soon. Anyway, as for Papua, they're divided into three countries, plus Papua, former part of the Majahabit Confederacy. A short-lived nation, WICSO. Probably don't remember it, and I don't blame you. I myself didn't even care about it. But I always wondered what if it survived. Anyway, that'd be a bit handy for another day. This pink country also gets released, not South Papua. I call it South Papua for convenience sake. I know any areas in Papua New Guinea or some shit. Anyway, and then the remainder of Papua just turns into, well, the state of Papua. They claim over the entirety of the island while they control most of it, but not all of it. Anyhow, Tasman remains a democratic nation from 1927 all the way to 2000. And that's when stuff gets serious. The Crux Legion rises to power after the 2010 elections due to an economic crisis due to the old empire, well, being dead after the War of the Elites. Sorry, the War of the Greats. Anyway, and now with Crux in charge, it seems Crux, he has a plan. Creating an Australian empire. But he has to start from somewhere, and that somewhere is Queensland. Yup, Queensland getting invaded. So what happens is essentially he just takes his troops and start whooping the military. Like one battle, half of it collapses, the other half is crippled and barely holding on to their life. And yeah, he continues his ass whooping campaigns throughout the country until he captures their capital and capitulates them in a matter of weeks. Yeah, this man was a genius. Anyway, I feel like I want to sneeze. Anyway, escape. Sulawesi will be kicked out of Darwin. Told you they're not gonna last long. So I thought we needed the support because it would look a little ugly. Anyway, and Western Australia takes the rest, including the city of Darwin. There's very little bit of a war. Anyway, this pink country gets swallowed up, and Western Papua unites with the rest of Papua to withstand the state of Australia. That's not gonna last long, buddy. Anyway, Western Australia fights in its first ever world war. That is the War of the Absolutes. Of course. Basically, every single fascist, communist, or democratic nation has fought in it, basically. Except for America. They stay neutral. Anyway, they take over Darwin, the Darwin province. But Western Australia gets to live another day. But not for long, buddy. What, do you think the Crux Legion is gonna have some mercy over Western Australia? Communists? Hell no! Matter of fact, they declared war on them a few years afterwards. They just started preparing their military for that. Um, once they did, they declared war, and the communist regime is like panicking and shit. The building starts going on fire. People are straight up panicking. This country may as well just fall into anarchy at this point. Western Australia is putting belt to ass, alright? They're kicking their ass. They're cooking once more. Told y'all the Crux Legion ain't gonna surrender. And, up. And they even are able to reach Perth, the capital, pretty easily. Again, this war barely takes any time. And now Australia is fully united under one fascist regime. And then move the bar here real quick. Good. Anyway, Australia now is pretty much united, strong, and about Sulawesi, yeah, no one cares about them anymore. They just got kicked out of Australia, and that's it. And now it's about time Australia gets involved with some real shit. They start funding Brazil's war against America, the first American-Brazilian war, or the Panama War. Anyway, they joined the Axis of Resistance, and that axis essentially acts as a well, they leave it after the war. That axis essentially acts as a way to stop American imperialism. These guys are imperialists themselves. Anyway, they want the Austronesian realm, which is essentially just Indonesia and the Philippines, and they need Papua New Guinea for that. They also became pretty pro-Chinese, so they stay pro-Chinese for a while, and they even invite Fu Zhang for dinner. We don't know, and it's gonna be pretty important later on. Not just this vid, another vid I'm gonna make later. Anyways, um, about Australia. Riots in Darwin start because like the federal government is pretty bad. They just suppress them. Very simple, very easy. That's what all fascist countries do, by the way. So don't be too surprised. And also turns out William Ross Frank has been selling weapons to Australia ever since ever. There were already some few doubts about how Australia got so rich. I mean, it can't just be via like economic reforms. There has to be like somebody into this. Just that somebody was into this. Rostrak has been uh, funding Australia for decades. The Rostrak family, and also the War of the Elites began, and they joined China's Triangle Alliance, although being also collaborative with Rostrak. They essentially try to play both sides off. All right, they do just to provide support for Brazil during their Second American-Brazil War. But what ends up happening is just Brazil gets whooped in the Civil War, and also Australia takes over the remaining of Papua. Nobody really cares. I mean, there was some condemnation by the AM, but they didn't really give a shit. It's kind of like the appeasement strategy. Anyway, Australia now eyes up the Philippines, and Banks Morrow and Panay are standing in the way. I did not mean that to rhyme, but if that's on fire, I should probably do some freestyle. Anyway, Australia doesn't really care about these two countries' sovereignty. They don't care that they're both in the AN. For them, they don't exist. They're just part of Australia, the Austronesian realm. So they swallow them up like it's appetizers. But Australia's biggest mistake was messing with the uh, Trapezoid Alliance, essentially Vietnam, South China, and the Philippines, and also the Unitarian Confederation. They get an ass whooping. They leave the Philippines and also They are forced to spit out. Yeah, they are forced to spit out Papua, except for the southern part. They still keep it because we've been another southern Papuan country. Sorry, no, it's a mistake, guys. It's a mistake. Anyway, Papua declared independence, and also no, they don't retake back Pebbles Island. They're broken away, like when they invaded first during the war of the elites. They still exist somehow. Subhanallah. Anyway, um, now these guys, Papua, they fall to full on anarchy. All right, they straight up turn to anarchy. Go Bolshevist paradise. But there's an issue. No faction can take over. That's during the Alternites' return to Earth, of course. So it makes sense. So Australia and the Indonesian unit area, their enemy, they split it down of 70-30, I believe. I mean, it's just a rough estimate. And now, about the conspiracy theories I've been hearing about Australia lately. First off, they harbor the rap organization. Yeah, it's true. I mean, they have been pretty cooperative with William Rothrock, and they also read it, and pretty much the representative of Australia has been